you also gotta do a little bit over here, okay? So, we're moving on to the topic of leading, and from there, leadership. And leading, and this is what I've been explaining so far, is about behavior. Leading is about behavior, how to influence behavior, how to change behavior, okay? Is why people behave the way they do behave. So, behavior in textbook, it's very easy, goes in two categories. Number one is individual. Individual behavior, and individual behavior is what we will cover today and next time. Chapter 9, and the other one is called group behavior. Group behavior. And that's chapter 10. And that's where I began to explain that a lot of times, big part of group behavior, we're going to study it maybe next week, big part of group behavior is called crowd psychology. And crowd psychology means people like to do the same as other people do. You like to do what other people do. Or if they do it in a certain way, you also do it in the same way. And the explanation is, as I said, herd behavior comes from crowd psychology, and the explanation is that, as I just mentioned, that there is safety in the numbers. In other words, when you have too many people doing what everyone else does, people feel a lot safer. Okay? Now, this applies to simple things like food. If you eat your food the same way that everybody else is eating, you're probably going to be okay and safe, okay? Now, I do the same thing, and that's how we learn foreigners about driving here motorcycle. I watch what everyone else does on the road, and I do the same thing, okay? And it is actually perfectly logical that if I do what everyone else does here, probably my driving will be just as safe as other people's driving, okay? And we should expect that local people drive more safely simply because they've been driving here for 10, 20, 30, or 40 years, okay? Same thing applies for eating. Whatever your local food is, you probably learned over hundreds of years what to eat, how to prepare it, what's a safe way to prepare it, what's a safe way to store it. So, doing what others do is usually safe, and it is an important part of what we call survival. Part of survival in the West, as in the cowboy movies, is you pull out the gun, you shoot first, and ask questions later, okay? You don't want to find the result, or if it's a bad guy or not a bad guy. Now, here, survival is what I was explaining. You may have 20, 30, or 50 birds all crowding together in a herd, okay? And if one bird flies out, within a tenth of a second, all of them fly out, okay? Because if one bird saw there is a threat, all of them fly out, even if they don't see the threat. Same thing applies about a lot of animals who eat grass, okay? And there may be a lion somewhere. And only one animal of these 100 starts running fast. The whole herd start running fast. And all begin to run in the same direction, not in the opposite. Because probably in the opposite direction is the lion, okay? So, a lot of what determines individual behavior is actually the group, is actually the many people. It's actually determined by what we eventually call for society the culture. The culture and cultural norms, okay? So that's about the group. We're going to be discussing it next time. Today we focus as much as we can on individuals and individual behavior, which is away and not in a group, separately, okay? People are different, so we're going to be discussing how each person and different psychological characteristics. Let's see if we can get this. Why is this not running well? Let's try. Oh, it's not working. We first get to see if I can get this up and running and get the PowerPoint management. We're now chapter 9. Yeah. Well, can anyone take a look and see? Can you take a look and see when this PowerPoint doesn't work? All right. So we continue back over here. The subject which studies behavior is called for business is called organizational behavior. So now you probably can you zoom in a little bit, right? An organizational behavior. So what is behavior? Behavior is how people act, how people respond, okay? And organizational behavior is how people respond or behave in business or during work. So essentially it's about work behavior, and that's what we study here in management. All right, so the actions of people at work. All right. Let's see what we have. So section number 1, we need to discuss what is in general organizational behavior. Organizational behavior number 1 looks first and foremost at individual behavior. Individual behavior as in the behavior of one single person, how one person behaves. So that's one of the key characteristics. Next, you got it up and running? Not yet? Next, among us. You got it. Remote? Well, where's the remote? Maybe we need to push the computer button. Oh yeah? Is it going? Wow! Amazing, isn't it? Oh yeah? Oh yeah, he's the hero slideshow. And from the beginning. What the hell was this? Alright, let's try and focus a little bit. So, focus, okay, identify the focus and goals of organizational behavior. I already began talking about it. The second part is explain how attitudes play job in performance. So we're going to be studying extensively attitudes. what is an attitude, how it works, and all the other things, how it affects individual behavior. And then discuss personality theories. I mean, people are different, have different types of personalities. And let's see what else we got. Perception. Discuss what is perception, how perception affects, okay? We'll also need another assistant who's going to be using the dictionary and translate some of these words for you, and all what these words mean. Also, discuss learning theories, how people learn, why people learn, the way people learn, okay? What is good for learning, what is bad for learning. And finally, there's as always in every other chapter, you have contemporary issues. You've probably noticed that every chapter's got contemporary issues in OB, standing for organizational behavior. All right. So, identify the focus and goals of organization. So this whole chapter is about organizational behavior. And organizational behavior is now a major field of management. It's a subject, it's a discipline. Maybe you will have a separate course in organizational behavior. I don't know that. But here is just one chapter. We're going to go through the basics. And the basics is entirely on psychology. So, you have the organization, and in any organization, in any business, and therefore in any behavior, you got aspects or points which we can see. We call these visible aspects, and you also have hidden aspects. Visible aspects are things which you can see and observe. A business, you can see and observe the strategies of a business, okay? The strategies of a business. Now, discussing what we did a little while ago about a business, we talked about crowd psychology, and doing like what everyone else is doing is the opposite of competitive advantage, which we studied before. In a competitive advantage, you are different, you are better, you offer some product which is either cheaper or somehow more attractive. In a crowd, or if you do like everybody else, you don't have competitive advantage. You can't do well, you can't perform. You do as bad as everyone else is doing. So, strategies help a business be better and be different. And doing like everyone else is a bad strategy in business. Next one, you see visible stuff like objectives. We already discussed. Businesses have objectives to grow, to make more money, or whatever those might be. You also see the policies, and also see the procedures. How a restaurant is working, how they cook the food, how they deliver, all of this stuff, it's easy to see. You can see the structure. Even if you're not in the business, you can come from outside and you can easily see who's the boss. I mean, when I walk in a restaurant, it's quick, it's easy to see who's the boss, okay? It's easy to see who's running the show, who's running the business. You can see the technology, also very easy. You can see who's the big boss, who's the smaller boss. In other words, you can see the formal authority, and you can see the chain of command. These are the things it's easy to see. Now, today we're going to focus on the things that you don't see easily. And of course, we covered already these in previous chapters. You have hidden aspects like attitude. Are workers motivated? Do they like their job? Do they want to do their job? Well, do they enjoy their job? Okay? Does the job bring them satisfaction? Or is it just a job? When you say a job, means Well, you don't care about the job. You just go there to get some money, okay? And it doesn't matter what the job is, okay? So, people got attitudes. They also got perceptions. They may perceive the job as good. They may perceive it as bad. Oh, they may perceive their boss as a nice guy, or they may perceive him as an asshole, like the bad guy, okay? So people perceive things differently. Well, how do they perceive the customer, okay? I was giving you an example where in Bulgaria, they hire these young girls who can't do anything to sit in the shop, okay? But they sit in front of the shop, they smoke a cigarette, okay? They're drinking coffee, and they're having a talk with their neighbor, the girl who takes care of the next shop, okay? And when the customer comes, they get to hate the customer because they gotta leave their coffee, they gotta leave their cigarette, they gotta go back in the shop, like serve the customer. So the customer is like a nuisance. He's just bothering them. I mean, they're having a good time, and they gotta go back and serve. Maybe they were listening to some music, maybe they were watching a movie on their mobile or on their laptop, and suddenly they gotta serve the customer. All right, plus they're gonna get almost the same money anyway. So why bother to take care of the customer? So all of these are different perceptions and again attitudes. You also have a group norm. And a group norm is how people behave in a group. You behave the way that other people usually would behave, okay? You'll do what others usually do. And a group norm is different from crowd behavior, that this norm is considered, which is something acceptable, which is something good, which is okay to do. So a group norm is how people behave in a group, but in a sense, this is what's accepted, what's normal, what's okay, right? Next one, you got informal interactions. For any kind of business, employees will interact informally. They will strike friendships, and they'll have relationships which are outside the job position. And they'll have a friendship because people need friends, because people want to have friends, okay? Because friends help each other, okay? Because it's better to have a friend than to be with a friend, okay? And that's what many of you do. I mean, you two sit together, you're friends, you study together, you spend time together, and it applies for almost any other pair or triple, or maybe 4 or 5 people. So, friendship is important in work and business, and we differentiate. In this case, we have informal interactions and informal friendships. Also important, but hidden. It's not easy to see. And then you have interpersonal and intergroup conflicts. In any kind of work, in any kind of business, you got conflicts. People arguing whether it's about the better job, about the better office, about more money, about vacation time. They always have certain conflicts. They always have certain difficulties. And you have them between people and also between groups of people. Okay? In university, any university has 2 types of groups of people working there. One is the faculty, which is the professors, and the other one is the administration. And usually you will always have some sort of a conflict between faculty and professors and administrators and bureaucrats. So whenever you have different groups, you should expect to have some sort of conflicts. Okay. Now here's another type of conflict. Group in here, which is between locals and foreigners. Okay, so foreigners come different country now. So you will have different groups and possibly conflict too. Possibly, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be that way. So these are things that do happen but are not very easy to see. All right, let's see what else we have. So, first of all, what is and what are the goals of organizational behavior? The fundamental goal is simple. You predict how people behave. You forecast how they behave. And based on your prediction, you try to change their behavior in a way you want to change it. Okay? In a way you would like them to work. So, individual behavior affects employee productivity. Very, very important. Businesses run on output and on productivity. High productivity means two things: better salaries for employees and better profits for the business. We call these return. Salaries are return on labor, and profits are return on capital. Higher productivity means better return for both labor and for capital. So productivity is fundamental for higher wages and for higher profits for any business. Another big problem which I discussed last time is absenteeism. And absenteeism, people don't come to work, okay? Don't come to work. Sometimes they don't feel like going to work, okay? Today I don't feel like going to work. This is what we discussed last time, the problem of discipline. Some workers are simply not disciplined, okay? They do what they want, they do whenever they want. If they want to go to work, they go to work. If they don't like going to work, they don't go to work. So absenteeism is a problem. It may come in another form. I gave you last time the example of, yeah, they got a party all the way till 4 or 5 o'clock. They got drunk, okay? They wake up at 8 o'clock. They still got the hangover, and they just call the boss and boss, I don't feel good. I'm sick today. I'm going to stay home, and all the other things. I mean, these things, I don't know, do they happen a lot here? But it in generally happen in different workplaces. And absenteeism could be also a problem because someone is just sick, honestly sick. They have a big health problem and they gotta go to the doctor over and over again for different issues. So absenteeism is a major problem, and we use organizational behavior to explain absenteeism, to explain why people don't come to work, but also the main goal is to lower absenteeism. In other words, you want people to come more regularly to work and on time, not coming late 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and so on, all right? Another fundamental goal of organizational behavior is to understand people and to understand why they leave their job, why they quit. Too many people quitting their job leads to turnover. And turnover is the number of people who leave the job for 1 year, or the percentage of people who leave the job for 1 year. So high turnover is really bad for the business. Low turnover is generally very good for a business. So businesses would like to keep as many employees as long as possible and to lose as few employees as possible. If you think in terms of a restaurant, you don't want every 2 weeks to have a new waitress, okay? And then after 2 weeks or after a month, the waitress leaves, you gotta try to find another one. Because turnover is costly. Turnover is expensive and lowers business profits. Turnover is bad for business. Next one, you also want to have organizational citizenship behavior. Yeah, that's some management talk. Basically, some employees feel that they're part of the organization. They are willing to work for it. They're willing to sacrifice for it. Okay, that's where comes the most common problem with foreigners employees. For example, like me, I'm not saying I'm that kind of person, but foreigners don't feel the work to be part of their family. They don't feel like they're part of the business. They come, they work for a year, 2, 3, 4 years, and then they're gone. Now, on the other hand, the locals expect to stay on this job for 10 years, hoping for 20 years, hoping for 30 years. The locals expect to make a career, to go to one level up and a second level up, and soon enough to become a dean and have a very high position. So, you want to find out why employees don't feel the workplace like home and are not willing to sacrifice as much for work. They come to the job and they leave the job. They don't care too much about the institution or the organization. They don't care much about the business. Well, you want employees to care about the business and to care eventually about the customer. Part of organizational behavior is job satisfaction. And you want employees to be satisfied, and you need them to be satisfied. And good job satisfaction usually means better working employees, better productivity. So, better job satisfaction translates into better employee productivity, better profits, and better job satisfaction means lower turnover. And again, lower cost to hire and lower cost to train people. So, job satisfaction is very important part. You want people and employees to be happy. You want them to be satisfied. And if they're happy and satisfied, they will care more about the business. And they're going to be willing to sacrifice more if they have to. And finally, you want organizational behavior to explain workplace misbehavior. Misbehavior could be playing music real loud, okay? Or trying to annoy other workers, trying to make them angry, okay? Or it could be making bad jokes. Or it could be just talking on the mobile or on the phone real loud, okay? So misbehavior could have hundreds of different forms, and you basically want to lower misbehavior. You want to reduce it. I mean, you cannot eliminate it, but you try to lower misbehavior, okay? You want them to work okay. You want to have a nice, good, proper work environment. So these are all the goals related and associated with organizational behavior. Let's see what else we have here. Section 1, done. Section 2, attitudes. Someone with a dictionary like the iPad, right? What is an attitude in Thai language? Can you translate attitude? You got it? All right. So, key attitudes. Previous one I just mentioned was job satisfaction. Very, very important. Are employees satisfied? Are they happy? And from that one comes the next one, job involvement. This is what I was explaining 2 minutes ago when I was talking about foreign employees and local employees. A local employee will be very involved in the job, usually. They will like the job. They will participate in everything possible. And foreign employees are not always very involved. They're not going to be very active. They're not going to be very energetic. They won't be eager to do a whole bunch of other things besides the minimum amount of work that they have to do. So being involved is actually important to build and maintain the integrity of the organization. Okay? And you want employees to be involved and satisfied. Part of involvement, or even bigger, is organizational commitment. And the commitment means readiness and willingness to sacrifice for the organization. That's also what it means to be committed in a relationship and to be committed in a marriage. You go through difficulty, and commitment means you're willing and ready to go through the difficulty to work out the problems in the marriage or to work out the problems in the business. So commitment means sacrifice and willingness to sacrifice, in this case, for the business and for the organization. And that's what makes a big difference, is commitment. When it's necessary, you can expect them that they will work and that they will provide. That's especially important, let's say in the tourist business, during the high season, where you get too many tourists, too much business. You get too tired, okay? It's too intensive, everyone's tired. That's when you really want them to be committed, okay? And the last one, which is very similar to involvement, is employees' engagement. I mean, I haven't figured out the exact difference between the involvement and engagement. Is basically the employee's connection to the job and enthusiasm about the job. Are they really enthusiastic? Are they eager? Are they happy? Are they, when they wake up, are they ready to go to work? Do they like their job and say, okay, I'm going to go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, all right? Or they just don't really care about it, it's just a job, okay? So these are all important characteristics and attitudes which relate to job performance. And when we say performance, the best measure of performance is productivity. Productivity. Let's see what else we have here. All right. We move on to something which is very tricky, and it's called cognitive dissonance. Yeah, everyone's looking at rain. You guys haven't seen rain before? It was yet rain yesterday. It was rain 2 days ago. It was rain 3 days ago. You see, this is part of behavior. I mean, you've been living, for how many months in rainy season, right? You see rain every day. Why are you surprised, right? So, cognitive dissonance is inconsistency, meaning difference between attitudes and behavior. Attitudes, and so attitudes is what you think. Attitude is what you actually think, and behavior is what you actually do. So it's a difference, let's call it, between mind and body, okay? And people a lot of times experience cognitive dissonance. Now, the best example, which I have been seeing for many years now in the United States about cognitive dissonance, is when the government, U.S. government, tells the people that the economy is good. And you're told that the economy is good, and the economy is supposed to be good, but looking everywhere, there are no jobs. Your brother is unemployed, your neighbor is unemployed. So what you're told and what you see is totally different. If you guys can't hear, you have to come probably up front, okay? If you can't hear. Can you hear me well? If you can, just come up here, plenty of space, because it's getting noisy from the rain. So, cognitive dissonance is also difference between what you hear and what you see, okay? That's also cognitive difference between what people think and what people do. And let's see what else we have. Now, when people have cognitive dissonance, they feel uncomfortable. They don't like cognitive dissonance. They don't like that there is a difference between what they see and what they do. And one of the major theories of cognitive dissonance is that people will try to narrow the dissonance. So dissonance means incompatibility or inconsistency is the same as difference. So they'll try to narrow somehow the difference. Okay? So, how they will narrow the difference and will they narrow the difference is very important. Okay? And let's see what they have. Understanding aptitudes. Man, this is no good. Let's see. Understanding aptitudes. Really bad. Sorry, guys. Really bad. Okay, so I gotta continue. PowerPoint, no good for this section. No good. I mean, there's nothing to gain. All right, so first of all, if there is a difference, it really depends how important it is. Is the difference important or not very important? Or let's take a 10-minute break, right? Yeah, let's do that. 10-minute break.